Hello and welcome back to our class. Our topic for today is future value on simple and compound interest. One day the master was going on a trip and decided to entrust his wealth to three of his most trusted servants. The wealth should be given to each servant based on the master's assessment of their talents. He gave each servant an amount of 500,000 pesos. The master then went on to his journey and told the servants he will not be back for a long time. Since the first servant was a very smart person, he decided to invest the 500,000 pesos given to him. He was very pleased that he was quoted a long-term investment for 5 years at 8% per annum compounded annually, and decided to invest the money in that institution. The second servant saw what the first servant did and also decided to invest the money. However, when given a choice by the investment firm, he did not understand the simple and compound interest. In the end, he accepted a quote at 8% per annum simple interest. The third servant saw them and thought that they were being too much of risk takers and decided to keep the money locked in a vault in his home. The master returned after 5 years. He then called on the servants and asked them what has become of the wealth he had entrusted them. The first servant presented his 500,000 pesos plus the interest he earned, worth 234,666.04. The second servant presented his 500,000 along with the interest earned of 200,000 pesos. Lastly, the third servant returned his 500,000 pesos. Which servant will make the master's most pleased? Before we discuss which servant will make the master most pleased, so let's have first the outline of our topic for today. So we have the definition of terms, derivation of formula, illustrative examples, and then summary. So let's have some definition of terms. So the first one is the simple interest. Simple interest is based on the principal amount of a loan or deposit, while the compound interest is based on the principal amount and the interest that accumulates on it in every period. So let's unlock first some definition of terms. So the first one is the interest period. So it is the amount of time which interest is calculated and added to the principal. The next one is compound interest. So it is the total interest that accumulated after more than one interest period. And finally, the third one is the future value or maturity value or compound amount is the accumulated principal and interest after one or more interest period. In short, if we say future value, this is the sum of your principal plus interest. Let's start with the simple interest. So take note that interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So we're in I is the interest, P is the principal or the present value or the money right now, and R is the rate and T is equal to the time. From our example, our principal is 500,000 pesos and the rate is 8% per year times 5 years. So we have here the interest is 200,000 pesos. Now, if we want to find out the total amount after 5 years, so we are looking for the future value. So the future value is the principal or the present value plus the interest. So substitute. So we have 500,000 plus 200,000. So we have the future value is 700,000 pesos. Okay, let's derive the formula for the future value, okay, of simple interest. And recall that our formula for the present value plus interest is equal to future value. And let us recall that, okay, interest is equal to principal times rate times time. However, I can rename the principal as the present value times rate times time. So therefore, I'll substitute the interest as the present value times rate times time. And I'll factor out the common factor. And the common factor is the present value. So we have here present value times 1 plus RT because present value divided by present value is equal to 1. And present value times rate times time divided by the present value is equal to RT. Now, let's have this future value is equal to present value times 1 plus RT. So this is the formula for the future value given the present value, the rate, and the time. Let's apply this. Given that, from the previous example, the present value is 500,000, the rate is 8%, and the time is equal to 5 years. So we have, okay, simply plug in the numbers. So the future value is equal to 700,000 pesos. Let's have the future value formula of compound interest. So we have here future value is equal to present value times 1 plus r over n raised to nt, such that FB is the future value. So PV is the present value or the principal, R is the interest rate, while n is the frequency in a year, and t is the number of years. We will limit our discussion. So let's apply this formula or the compound interest such that the future value is equal to present value times 1. So for annually, we have the frequency n is equal to 1. By the given, so the present value or the principal is equal to 500,000. So rate is 8% per annum frequency per year, compounded annually. So it means that the frequency in a year is 1 and the time is equal to 5 years. Then we simply plug in all these values. So we have 500,000 times 1 plus 8% divided by 1 raised to 1 times 5. So therefore, we come up with a future value is equal to 734,664.04. However, if we want to solve only for the interest, we simply subtract, okay, the future value by the present value. So it means that we have 733,664.04 minus 500,000. So we come up with, okay, interest is equal to 233,664.04. So let's have this example number 1. Find the compound interest and the future value of 200,000 for 3 years that compounds quarterly at 8%. So first, let's identify the given. So the present value is 200,000. So the time is 3 years. So rate is 8% compounded quarterly. So meaning to say the frequency in a year is equal to 4. So that is why we write there n is equal to 4. So we want to find out the future value as well as the interest. So let's start. So from the given, we have here future value is equal to present value times 1 plus r over n raised to nt. Then we simply substitute the given. So we have 200,000 times 1 plus 8% divided by 4 raised to 4 times 3. So using our calculator, we come up with a future value of 253,648.36. However, we want to know also the interest. Take note that interest is equal to future value minus the present value. So we come up with 253,648.36 minus 200,000. So the interest is 53,648.36. So let's have the next example. So find the simple interest and future value on 500,000 on 6 years if the annual interest rate is 12%. So take note that this is actually on simple interest. So before we solve this, let's identify the given. So the given are present value is equal to 500,000, time is equal to 6 years, rate is 12%, so the future value is unknown as well as the interest is also unknown. So take note that we will use this formula for the simple interest involving the future value. So the future value is equal to present value times 1 plus RT. Then plug in the numbers. So I have 500,000 times 1 plus 12% times 6. So using our calculator, we can come up with this value of 860,000 pesos. So this is your future value. But we want to know also the simple interest or the interest. So recall that interest is equal to future value minus the present value. So we have 860,000 minus 500,000. So the interest is equal to 360,000 pesos. So let's have another example. Meg deposits 400,000 into an account paying 3.25% annual interest compounded monthly. How much money will be in the account after 10 years? So let's identify first the given. Since the present value is 400,000 and the time is 10 years and the rate is 3.25 compounded monthly. So it follows that our frequency or our n is equal to 12 and we want to find out the future value. So using the formula, future value is equal to present value times 1 plus r over n raised to nt, and then substitute the given values. So we have 400,000 times 1 plus 3.25% over 12 raised to 12 times 10. So the value or the future value is equal to 553,369.10. Okay, so therefore we can say that there will be 553,369.10 in the account after 10 years.